Hey, this is the video for 5.6, Graph Scale. So go ahead and check out the essential vocabulary and set up your guided notes. So this video is going to be how to set up your graph and what you are going to be counting by. So the first vocabulary word is graph scale, and this is just a set of numbers that represents the intervals on a graph. And the intervals is just a fancy way of saying what you're counting by. So you're going to count by a factor of 1, 2, or 5. But that means you could also count by 10s, you can count by 20s, you can count by 50s, you can count by 100, 200, 500. But you can also count by smaller numbers like 0.1, 0.2, or 0.5. So I'm now going to show you, our next vocabulary word is the origin. And the origin is just the point on the graph where each axis is equal to 0. So the x-axis is equal to 0 and the y-axis is equal to 0. And you'll see what we're talking about when I go through an example. So the first one, or the example we're going to go over, is related to this setup, and you've seen this setup before. But if the air is bubbled, then roots will grow. So that's our basic hypothesis. And this represents a data table. So if this is the results of what we have set up, first of all, remember that this 0 hours per day represents our control group. And we are counting, we're doing various amount of time with the bubbles, the aeration time, and we're measuring that in hours. And then we're going to be measuring the root growth. This is the data that I have collected. Now, when we set up our graph, we need to include the smallest value for the x-axis and the largest value. So we need to get from 0 to 24. But on the y-axis, we need to have from 0.4 to 1.5 centimeters. So let's look at how to set it up. I have the data table up here just for your reference. Now, what we will do is first, let's try to count by ones. So just so you know, you're going to put your numbers underneath the line, not underneath the boxes. On a line graph, you would start out, for example, count by ones, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can't get to 24. 24 is not going to fit. So let's try the next number. Count by twos. Okay, start again with 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Not quite. 24 will extend beyond the graph. So let's try our next number. Count by fives. Again, 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. The maximum value of 24 will be within this section. So now let's set up our y-axis. Again, now these numbers are small, so we can't count by ones. Let's try counting by 0.1. So 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. Our maximum value of 1.5 is beyond this y-axis. So let's try counting by 0.2. 0 again, 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, 1.0. That doesn't work either because our 1.5 will be beyond the scope of the y-axis. So let's count by half, or 0.5. Again, 0, 0.5, 1.0, 1.5, 2.0, and 2.5. Now, my maximum value of 1.5 is within this range. So all of our numbers will fit in this area. And this is actually a good thing because we want to make sure that our numbers fit in, they take up at least half of the graph. So half of it along the x-axis and at least half of it along the y-axis. So once our data is plotted, it will look something like this. Now let's just say you counted by the wrong value. Let's say you counted by too much. So you went by 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. When we plot our value, 24, our maximum x value will be right here. Now let's look at our y, 0, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Our maximum y value of 1.5 will be here. So when we set up our graph, you're only plotting it in a little tiny area. You have this giant grid. You want to fill up as much of the grid as possible. Okay, now it's your turn. This is a check for understanding. So if you were to set up this graph, what are you going to count by in the x-axis and in the y-axis? Enter your value now. Now we have the same values, or the same grid, data table, but now the grid size has changed. So what would you be counting by for the x and the y-axis? Please enter it now. Now what I would like you to do is continue on with practice problem set 6. I hope that this video is informative. I thank you for your attention, and I will see you soon.